Hi there, this is Daniel with End Time Country Living, and on this video I wanted to share with you guys how I am turning my compost pile and what tool I'm using. That's coming right up. So the tool that has been historically used for turning a compost pile is the good old pitchfork. Now this is not a pitchfork, this is a extra large manure fork or something like that for or a mulching fork. This is got about 5 tines on it, and they're quite long. I would say they're probably 15 inches or 16 inches long. Pitchfork usually has 4 tines, and they're only usually around 10 or maybe 12 inches long. So this is good for doing large quantities of material. Good for making a compost, be able to grab some grass clippings and put it on shake it all over the pile, and also for getting some dry leaves or other brown material that I wanted to mix in with my compost, but not so much for turning the compost pile. There's actually another tool I want to introduce you to, which is the manure hook. And so this is basically a pitchfork with bent tines. So these tines are around 8 inches long, and they're about 8 inches wide. So this is, you could say, a small pitchfork with the tines bent on it. So what this is good for is for pulling and aerating a pile without actually scooping it up and lifting it and shaking it and throwing it, things like that. So this makes it a lot less work to break up the pile, get air into it so that it can continue its aerobic process. So one of the things that I do is put all my compost into a windrow, and so kind of a pile that's long and skinny so that it incorporates air through it, and it isn't this huge pile that's a big circle. It also means it's a lot less work to move it, so I can just move a small portion of it and keep going along, rather than having this huge pile that I have to try to move the whole thing over in order to get to the center to aerate it. So it makes it a little more convenient and efficient. So one of the things I've started to do here is to move the pile slightly for about a foot over. So that's the process of spearing the fork very easily into the compost, and then just pulling it. Pulling is much easier than to lift, and so I'm not really lifting it, I'm just pulling it back. So it's kind of a hoeing motion where, like you'd use a hoe. In this case, you can take little bites or bigger bites, really smack it down in there, pull it, shake it off a little bit if it gets stuff stuck to it a little bit. It doesn't stick too badly if you just keep going. It tends to fall off. But do about half the pile, and then I switch to the other side here. Come over here on this side, pull this. So I'm also noticing if there's anything that's getting too dry. If the grass clippings especially get too dry, they won't decompose. They'll just get kind of white. So if I see something that looks a little too dry, I'll get the hose and spray it down so it'll continue the decomposition process. I want to make sure it's damp enough. Also, air is important because we are using aerobic bacteria to decompose the pile, and they are already on the surface of the leaf. They have a different function when the plant is growing. They start decomposing the organic matter, the leaves, the blades of the grass, and the leaves that are in here. So this is a mixture of about 60% grass clippings and about 40% leaves and other vines and things like that. A lot of blackberry vines and oak leaves, things like that. that are in here that have been chopped up with the lawnmower. So rather than just raking your leaves, running over them with and bagging them with the lawnmower, breaks them up nicely and they decompose a lot faster. Take up a lot less space as well. So that's kind of benefits of this manure hook here. So a compost thermometer, or even a small kitchen thermometer, probe thermometer, is very useful for checking how hot your compost pile is getting. And when it drops below a certain level, you know it's running out of oxygen and it's time to turn it. So right now this compost pile is reading at just under 140. So you need to keep it in the hot zone here, which is around 133 degrees and above, for about 3 days in order to kill off a lot of the pathogens and weed seeds mainly. So the weed seeds you want to make sure those are killed off so you don't have a lot of weeds coming up when you apply it in your garden. And so this allows you to see from the center of the pile whether or not it's staying in that zone or not. When it starts to drop, you know it's running out of oxygen. So that's something to take a look at. So this particular manure fork that I was able to find is a Razorback. The model number on it is 75212GR. If you want to look it up, I believe I paid around $96 for it. So it's a little more expensive than some other tools, but it is a forged tines on there. It is been bought out by Ames, so the quality has definitely gone down from the probably 10 years ago when the Razorback was producing it themselves. But it's still a decent tool, and on the lower end there's some for 150 to 200, somewhere in that range, from other brands that may be a little bit higher quality, but I'm not moving a lot of heavy stuff with it, so it seems like the tines are nice and sturdy. They're not just bent stamped metal or anything like that. They're actually forged and seem to be fairly decent. They're not perfect. I could say that the quality control is lacking a little bit. But it's a decent handle. It's like a 5-foot handle, so it's not overly long, but it's about what I need to. So this is about what it comes to when it hits the ground, up to my chin here. I'm 6'4", or 6'3.5", or something like that now. Shrunk a little bit, but got my boots on, so I guess I'm maybe back up to my 6'4". So anyway, fairly good tool. It's definitely saved me a lot of effort, sped up. It also speeds up the process, makes the turning and aerating of the piles go faster. So if you're looking for something to make your job a little easier in turning your compost so you can make good rich compost for your garden, take a look at the manure hook. All right, talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.